Hello everybody. I'm very pleased to be in Slovenia for my second time. The first time was 2 years ago, and it was a research trip which was connected with the industry, but not in terms of presenting in the university and the Slovenian Developers Association. So I'm very pleased, and thank you, gentlemen, for inviting me here. So the topic today here is the importance of PR building and networking outreach for your upcoming games. Before I start, I'm just curious of the demographics of the audience. Who is not from Slovenia? Okay. Are you guys from ex-Yugoslavia or from other regions in Europe? So? Both? Yeah. Okay, so who in the audience is actually a game developer and has an upcoming game coming up? Okay. Good to know. So, today I would like to speak to you about one problem that appears technical problem here. Yeah. So the main problem that I think appears in the industry when you're close to your game release is, you're facing a lot of competition. And you're facing many other games coming from all regions of the world, from the Nordic region where there's a high quality of games, from Southeast Asia where there are games running every month, and some of them may not be so interesting, but there has been a big success with Fluffy Birds there. So what do you do in order to make yourself stand out in the crowd and finding ways to be visible and to target the right audiences when launching your game? The problem and the difficulty is that basically, being the target group, developers often have difficulty in finding the right service, because there's so many companies that are offering you to work with them, trying to promote their own services, but how do you know which one will benefit you in the long run? And from this, there's always a sense of deceit and misleading in many cases, in which companies spend money in the wrong direction, and then you miss that initial wave, which could make you noticeable and hopefully break the barriers. And in order to avoid these traps and misinformed decisions, each company, as you know from your own studios, you have to spend time and resources trying to find the right product, a strategy which may or may not be successful. So then comes the puzzle. The puzzle or the problematique of the whole scenario is, why do some games with limited marketing funds manage to break the charts while others succumb in anonymity? Why do some people get lucky or find the right resources to break through, and some, although they really invest a lot of money and visibility, they still fail? And what are the essential factors, essentially, that take into account a successful marketing campaign for an upcoming release? So today, as a summary of the presentation, I'll speak to you first about how you can increase your chances of getting editorial coverage with limited marketing funds for small studios. Second, I'll speak about the importance of PR and how to run a successful campaign. Third, we're going to talk about marketing your game to consumers, the so-called three-step approach, and I will guide you through each of the dimensions so you can see how it can be a consequential pattern to success. And finally, networking, which is an absolutely essential aspect of your branding and how you could use it for your own success also in the long term. Now, let's start with securing editorial coverage by yourselves. So, one of the aspects of the initial marketing search for you is to have access to information. Information is vital, and that's how it works in today's society. You have to be close to it, you have to research it, you have to know which are the right sources for getting the latest updates. So, yes, you have to research, you have to generally read the media interest and website contents, and try to know who are the main media outlet partners out there. And once you know them, you also have to differentiate the niches from which each one comes through. Because you'll have your own game, and you know what is your audience targets, you know what is your gender differentiation, and what you're looking for, the regions of targets. So try to differentiate between the media outlets that are relevant for you and specific for your own type of game, and the general global ones, which may be a useful form of information, but they may not be relevant for you to access to receive your coverage there. And then once you've done this research, then you can target those game review websites that have written on similar games that you in the past, and try to find out some specific information about that in the actual journal. Find out who's working there. Find out either by LinkedIn, email, or research the site or through personal connections, but try to really find out persons and not just info addresses. Also, another way of doing it is meeting journalists and at regional and global conferences. I'm sure there are some local journalists here, so it'd be good to talk to them if you are doing a soft launch in the region. Or if you go to bigger conferences such as Game Connection or Nordic Game or others, then you could try to talk either during the conference itself or at parties with these journalists so they can remember you afterwards. Now, as I mentioned before, it's very important you do not send email to email addresses that have info contact. I used to work for Poker Gamer, which had over 90 websites, and those info ones were generally forwarded to the sales team so they could approach them for getting funds out of it, so they were not even read. And it's better to actually target the right contact, or at least the person. That's what I would say his name. Basically, editorial outlets receive about 80 emails per day, so it's very difficult to actually stand out if you don't find the right way to approach them. Hello, Tadej. Welcome. And also, if you don't have access to them either through personal contacts or by knowing someone or maybe someone in the editorial journals, use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very easily approachable tool that we can look at who's working with those companies, and you can either try to add them or find a shared connection that could introduce you to them. So always use your connections and your research abilities for that. When writing to those journals, it's very important that you use a certain personalized form of addressing those journalists. So it's always interesting to put a good, catchy, sexy intro with very concise information, not too much, but relevant for what you're looking for. Perhaps showing why your game stands out from the crowd. Why is it an interesting one? Why is it unique? Why should they cover it? And then also, of course, put in some graphics that summarize the idea of the game, the sort of, your objective with that game and why you think the audience will just follow their feet when they see it. Because I believe, everybody that makes a game believes that their game will be successful. Otherwise, it's a hobby. Could be a hobby, but also you need to think from a business perspective too. Yes, and of course, the less information, the better it is the message. Focus on keywords and the essential aspects of making your game stand out as unique and different than your competition. If your English is not really, really good, then try to use a friend that speaks well, or maybe someone, or use a translation agency that has a very good price, so they can help you with that. And as I mentioned, graphics are as essential because if you focus on 3 or maximum 4 screenshots, then you can actually really have a good summary of the game itself. You can put maybe some kind of introduction, some of the climax of the game, and just maybe the intrigue too, what makes it really, really fun and unique. And this is funny, but it's actually true, If you email on Tuesday to Thursday during the week, people seem, based on research, to read more of their emails than if you do it on Mondays or Fridays. Because Monday, you have a huge backlash of emails in your inbox. Friday, you're tired of work. So you can focus on those days, and also do not email on weekends, on evenings for the given time of the publication. So if there's a Game Zero publication in San Francisco, think when their time zone is and when we should email to Joel Brody, for instance, who's running that site. And also, another way to approach those journalists is by asking them to give you some sort of mock reviews. Sometimes journal outlets, they have consultancy packages, and you can request them. And although you can pay a certain amount of money, it's not much. Usually it's about maybe $1,000, maximum $2,000. They could give you advice as journalists on how to improve your game, what to add to the content, maybe what makes sense given today's audience perspective, what doesn't. And if you do that, you already have a contact with them because they're working on your game. And hopefully, once it's done, they will think of reviewing it. So that's one way of paying a little bit, but having more benefits without using PR afterwards directly to the contact with the given publication. So, how to run a successful PR campaign? So, the most important thing is the initial choice, right? Who to work with. Would you work with a global organization of PR that maybe have a lot of employees, so you will end up working with an intern in the end, or would you work with someone that's more focused and has less employees but have a relevant source of clients that have been closely connected to your game, similar games as before? So it's very important to take certain factors into account, such as, for instance, researching whether the PR agency has the experience to deliver results within your game niche and region of selection. Then you can look at the research. You can research their past and current clients in the PR agency portfolio. If there are big names, if they're successful, if they're only big names, they have also a mixture of big and small. So look at the diversity of that and put this into your decision-making process beforehand. Also, if you find this list of clients within the given portfolio, contact those clients directly. Don't be afraid to ask another developer that worked with them why their campaign was successful, why it wasn't, or how do they feel about working with this PR agency. Usually, people share this information because they want to help each other. So use, once again, LinkedIn because they'll be there, or ask me, for instance. I know I should some of this, so just email me afterwards. I'll give you the contact. If you need to, if you come to those previous clients, obviously ask them for advice, and also check if they're recurring clients or one-off. It's also important because long-term partnerships is what makes this industry grow better and have more focus on the game quality. Because then, when you have a long-term partnership, you don't think that much of who to work with. So if these clients are recurring clients, then maybe it makes sense for you to work with that agency because they're already delivered within some given companies, long-term perspective. And use those recommendations from other developers and publishers. Maybe they will direct you in a different way, but talk to them. Just make sure that you communicate the most with your fellow developers. Also look at media stories for success stories on PR campaigns. Sometimes some games reach millions of downloads, and this is done also through a PR approach, and this would be noticed on a media site. So check Game Industry Biz, Pop Gamer, Eurogamer, any other publication that shows what's happening in the industry, TechCrunch, etc. And yes, of course, I'm here to help. So if you ever have questions on PR agencies or who you want to work with on your own games, then you can talk to me and I'll help out. Now, once you've selected a PR agency, so you've already gone through the first thought process, you've done the research, you've already started to work with someone, then what is very important is to ensure that the game information, outline of requested events, timeline is well presented to the agency. So make sure you communicate exactly what you need from the agency. What are your benchmarks? What are your goals? What do you think can be achieved with it? Because any reliable PR agency will either tell you, wake up, it's not going to happen, and they may even be honest and say the game is not good, or they don't think they could do a good job with it, depending on your goals, or they will explain to you how PR actually works, and that there's never a guarantee of the size, but based on your game niche and what you're doing, it may have success. And usually reliable partners will be very honest with you, and they will look at the both positive and negative perspectives, and you will be totally informed of that. So make sure that you inform the agency of your expectations, so there's no misunderstanding between the two in the beginning. And as a rule of thumb, as I mentioned before, there's never a guarantee that the press will pick up your story. It really depends. Of course, there are tendencies, and if, for instance, a game made $500,000 in Madrid, Spain, on their soft launch, then after 2 weeks, and obviously this will be a news story, and it should be picked up. But in the end, it's the Western press decides on it by itself. In Asia, it's different. In Asia, because I also work with GMPC, in China, PR is payable there. You just come with they call it the envelope. You give the envelope to the press, and they will write about you. So that's a different thing. It's called bribery in the West, but it works there. And yes, so also keep constant communication with the PR agency. Try to schedule a call each time, once per week, because they become de facto your press agency for the given time period that you've done the contract with. So let's say you have a 2-month period before the campaign, like schedule calls and make sure that they are working on it and you're expressing your concerns, and you're also giving them the latest game builds and photos from how the gameplay works. And do not be afraid to put pressure on them, because you pay them and they work for you. You employ them for the given period. So ask for as much info as needed. Transparency is very important in your relationship with them. Now, the campaign has finished, and you may or may not be happy with it. However, even if you're not happy or if you're happy, you should still speak to them, right? So I advise a post-campaign feedback call with them, in which you explain exactly what you thought they did well and what you thought they should change from your own perspective, and you get their feedback from them on what they think the campaign worked and why it went well or not. And this way, it also creates a more closer boundary with them and a closer communication. It also shows you whether they really cared about your campaign or not, because that's very important, the way you communicate with you and what's happening. And do not be afraid to change the PR agency client if you're unsatisfied with their whole modus operandi. Like, many PR agencies present themselves as very viral at the beginning. So the first 6 months, for instance, when you have a publisher, like for example, Taptail or Come2Us, they work with the PR agency for a year, but they realize after 6 months they start relaxing their approach, because they either get into the routine habit, they're not thinking out of the box, so they change them quite frequently. And yeah, so it's important to actually put this pressure, have the feedback, and show that you are there and you care. So always act as a watchdog. Now, let's talk about the content of the PR. What should be in it, what is the timeline, and what are the actual specific dimensions of it. So, generally, each PR campaign must follow your game awareness goals. You have your goals, you know who you're targeting, you know what you want from it, you know what is your audience demographics and other elements. Make sure you state them. And then the PR campaign must target those right audiences. It must focus on, for instance, mobile gaming enthusiasts, or on media influencers, if that's part of the goals, in gaming, mobile technology, and mainstream media and social media. As I mentioned before, the PR agency becomes your de facto press office watchdog. So when they're doing this, they should serve you as your PR agency for your representing you globally on any query, any press query, or also target the regional territories, and they can coordinate requests for interviews as well. For instance, if your game is picking up and people are interested to talk to you more and more. So the content approach, what does it have? It has, first of all, a messaging and press kit development in each PR company. So there are key messages and press kit materials that are being developed, which may include a corporate backgrounder, such as a fact sheet, key executive bios, screenshots, video, illustration, artwork, logos, frequently asked questions, and also as any other media info that media could cover in the app in depth. And this kit that you prepare with a PR agency together, it should be shared with the media throughout the campaign and updated as needed depending on your milestones and what your success is after 2 weeks, after 4 weeks, or anything that is relevant for the media. From a media perspective, you should always make them aware of it, and also change your press kit. Now, regarding timeline and deliverables, the PR agency and you create a timeline together, and this timeline focuses on building awareness and trying to ignite also consumer interest in your game. The plan should outline detailed tactics, creative ideas, and also required assets and timing for all activities. It should be very, very like a manual, like a sort of, for those religious, a Bible of the actual communication pattern. And It's called the press release and media alert creation and distribution. The PR agency's role and focus will be to develop press releases that announce the upcoming game, the official launch, and distribute a target media list to keep the news top of mind with target audiences. So usually this follows the official launch announcement. When you decide to launch it, then this could be a relevant press info. And also media alert highlighting key success milestones achieved. Let's say that you've achieved 1 million downloads, you're going to announce that, or high App Store ranking, number of installs, etc. These are all media relevant information that can be newsworthy. Now regarding the game asset releases and review campaign, the PR agency must conduct a dedicated game review outreach with review codes. They're going to put review codes for people to play them, approved press kit asserts, and any other key item giveaways that can provide media to encourage game reviews. Game reviews are essential because game reviews on sites that are consumer focused, they allow the consumers to check them, and if there's a high score on it, they'll want to check it out because they will be interested to see why the media believes that this is actually a good game. And then, by playing them, downloads will start. There'll be also a viral element of communicating with their friends, and hopefully it will bring those downloads into user acquisition. So, in regards to media outreach and coverage, they can conduct targeted outreach for media briefings, game reviews, story coverage, news mentions, and interviews throughout the campaign. And you should always define those key targets with them and discuss this campaign from start to follow with each call each week to try to update it as needed. Now, here is a list, pretty big list of media outlets that can be targeted, and I divide them into 4 categories. There's the game trade media, which includes journals like Pocket Gamer, Develop, Game Industry Biz, Gamma Sutra, GamesBeat, Edge. Then you have this more general. Then you have more the game enthusiast media, which is IGN, Touch Arcade, Publishers, Destructoid, GameCube, Pocket Gamer. Sometimes they fall in 2 categories, of course. Then you have the mobile technology trade media with Fierce Wireless, Gigahound, TechCrunch, The Verge. Actually, it's 5. And then also business and financial media, and nationally syndicated consumer media and regional newspapers. Here it's a US focus list, but for each region you could change that. And depending on your needs, you know who to target and which journals you should focus on. Now, once you've finished the PR approach, then let's discuss on a 3-step approach for how you should actually market your game. Now, there are various models out there, but do they actually work? There are many ad networks that provide CPI options, cost per install, and they want you to spend money, but how do you know who's the right partner and how do you know what is the actual timeline for that? Now, my role here and my model is to actually take a 3-tier approach before you spend any money. The third one being when you actually spend it, and in terms of user acquisition. So, first of all, it's important to acquire branding, and this can be done either via editorial contacts or PR agencies, or by yourself, by preparing and teasing the audiences before the release. So it's very important that you have this teasing element, this pre sort of understanding of maybe something happening, and this could be quite good. Like, you have those film trailers coming up. You should also use this for your games, that the game is coming up and you basically prepare the audiences and the game media as well on that. And second would be get social. That's actually, it's also the name of the company, but most importantly, it's you trying to build a social community behind it. You actively focusing on making sure that any users of your application, which can be done in a soft launch, they're sharing the information and they're encouraged to play with each other. And you could add this into your app, into your game. There could be features that could have your game shared on Facebook, on Twitter, on WeChat, or through instant messaging within the application itself, because that's how you can brag about your scores, that's how you can discuss more of what each person can do against each other. You create this competition sense, which is always good. And Yeah, there are some providers that will help you with this. I would advise not to pay for those features, either to build it yourselves, or if you don't have the capacity to use a revenue share possibility, and then to work together towards building this out. And finally, of course, you get to the user acquisition side, in which, once again, you have to do research on who are successful companies, who are the good companies out there, and look at your peers and who they worked with and who they advise, and also media stories, of course. And be very careful in terms and conditions, so you don't lose out working with them. There are some companies actually that focus on indie developers that have had a success within their game, but they don't have the money. And they usually provide them with a lending benefit. Let's say that you actually launched the application and you've reached a certain amount of downloads because you spent some money, but before the App Store gives the money back, you need to have it again to actually push it. And these kind of companies, they can provide you this lending, of course, with their interest, and then you can keep pushing that. So look and research the market and see who will be good partners for you there. And the last step, which is very important, that's what I've been doing for 5 years, and helped me a lot, I think it helped anybody, is the actual networking outreach. Networking means basically, just being there at the right time and constantly being seen, either through Facebook groups, or either through emails, or through conference participation, anything that can make your presence noticeable. This means that you receive pretty much free branding. You're noticed as a vital part of the gaming industry. Your company gets a name, and your game is constantly being pitched. And this is many times ignored, but I think it's one of the best aspects of this industry for going forward. So I would advise to attend conferences, so be present. This conference brings you knowledge and innovation awareness, such as through presentations where you can learn the latest trends, plus also direct meetings, when you meet some of the journalists, like for instance, I know in, what was this? PG Connects Helsinki, I was there 2 weeks ago, and there was a PR agent that really needed to speak to a guy from The Guardian, and she just traced him all conference. She was looking for him, she couldn't find him, finally at the party, they managed to talk, and now they build pretty strong relationships. So it's important to be there and to try to also prepare very well your conference participation. If you go to a conference, it's important to see who's attending, what they represent, and then schedule meetings and try to interact as much as possible. That's what we basically need: press, publishers, investors, also service providers, about everything. I would advise to check a calendar of must-to-go conferences, especially the ones dedicated to developer games, as I present already, so like into games here, so try to focus on those that are games focused and not so much diverse. For instance, I always find a waste of time for me to go to MWC in Barcelona. There are about, 20,000 people there, no meeting system, and unless you know the people before, you just get lost into a sea of 10 airports. And the same with big conferences like E3 in Los Angeles. That's great for publishers, but for indie developers it's less relevant. So I would focus on making up a roadmap of which conferences to attend, and then, I know you have to pay for them, but if you start going to many conferences or know the right people, you don't pay for them. I never paid to go to a conference, for instance. Basically there are some conferences that are catch-all for games, such as Casual Connect. They have 4 editions per year: Nordic Game, GDC Europe, or GDC America, Game Connection Paris. And some of them are very much focused on indies, such as Reboot Develop. I was in Dubrovnik this year. It was a very nice conference, so I recommend that to you for next year. DevGam, who are running their conferences in Hamburg, Minsk, and Moscow. And Respawn, which is a very good conference in partnership with Covadis in Germany, in Gamescom and Berlin. So feel free to ask me if you have questions about whether the conference is relevant or where to go, and I'll gladly help you. And oops. Yeah. And as I mentioned, you should prepare very much before going to a conference. It's very important to have an awareness of the topics. I would advise to at least attend 1 topic per conference, and the rest to actually focus on networking. And some conferences like here are more focused on content, but some are focused on meetings. and booths, so you could do run the booths and use the meeting system for that. And LinkedIn, of course. There's no meeting system. Go through LinkedIn, look at the list of speakers, see who you want to talk to personally, and then approach them. And usually people are responsive, usually on the conferences, unless they're arrogant. This industry doesn't have much place for arrogance, I hope. Yeah, after the conference, that's very important. You should follow up on all your meetings. I don't do it, because I don't have time, but I used to do it. I always ask people to write to me first, and then I'll try to answer. But let's say you have 30 meetings, try to actually write those emails the week after, and use cues of anything fun or anything related to that meeting to make them respond. Like, in the first paragraph, just remind them what happened and why you're interested in speaking to them and what the meeting outcome was. And from there, you will at least answer other providers, because they mentioned personally. Yeah. And here you have my details. If you need to contact me, I have my 2 email addresses, and usually it's easier even to get me on Skype. But I'll always try to answer the emails. If I don't answer, do a follow-up, and I'll try to respond. And as in Reboot Develop, there I had a winner, and I hope he's not going to be the first one asking the question. As I mentioned, Nordic Game will be our 13th Lucky Edition next year in Malmö, in Sweden, very close to Copenhagen, a bridge away, and it's over 2,000 people attending, over 900 indies, with lots of indie-focused activities and parties, and just a lot of journalists coming from all over the world. So whoever asks the first question gets a ticket and a pitch the match meeting access.